I used to hear a lot of weird stuff back in the day. Stuff sounds vague, but I don't know how else to describe it. People just used to confide in me. I never asked them to. They just did. They felt they could unburden themselves with me for some reason. Parents, too. For some reason, I was the kid that parents instantly trusted. And I think I honored that for the most part. I can say for sure I was the voice of reason and was usually sober when compared to how drunk everyone else was. Also, when I got my license at 17, I stopped drinking for 5 years. I talked so many of my friends out of doing stupid shit. I think I did it in a loving way. That's why people felt safe with me. When I was a sophomore in high school, I met a girl named Aubry. She was very exotic looking. If I had to guess, I'd say she was of Persian descent. I'm not sure where the name Aubry comes from originally, but her family had been in the USA for way longer than mine. Her name could have come from anywhere. I was intoxicated by Aubry, not in a lesbian way. I hadn't ruled it out yet, but that's not the feeling I got from her. She was very pretty and very confident. I fell into a fast friendship with her. After about a week, she told me her mother and her were moving the next day. She asked me to come over. She had some gifts for me and an introduction to make. I agreed. We walked to her house, which was about a mile from our school. It was deep in the canyon and off the main road. She lived in the only apartment complex in the canyon. The complex was huge. It was gated and you had to be buzzed in. It had a prison vibe to it. The apartment complex was probably amazing back in the 50s, but it was a dump now. There were probably 100 units. There was a courtyard with a small swimming pool in the center. It was the kind of pool where if someone told you that a body had been found floating in its center, you would not be surprised. It had that kind of vibe. Aubry led me to her apartment on the 3rd floor. There were 5 floors total. Her apartment was a corner unit. I expected it to be brighter, but the architect was an asshole and didn't take advantage of the corner by adding more windows. Aubry's room was very small. I thought my room at home was small. At least Aubry had a closet. I long for a house with a lot of closet space. Somewhere for me to hide my ghosts. Most of her things were already packed in boxes. If they weren't, they lay strewn about the tiny room as if a tornado had gone off. She hadn't yet taken down all the posters in her room. I saw a few familiar faces staring back at me with their rock star poses. Aubry sat down on her bed and opened the drawer of her little side table. She pulled out a book that looked like it had been read hundreds of times. The edges of the cover showed so much wear. It was hard to make out the title. Witches. She handed the book to me. I took it and kind of laughed. I was raised by good people with no particular religious philosophy. If they had one, it would be the golden rule. I think it's a good standard to set. Given this, I did not believe in anything religious or supernatural. If that book had been given to me by any other person, I would have laughed in their face. But Aubry was special. When she handed the book to me, she made it feel important. So I took the book from her, held it for a second, and put it in my backpack. I'll read it later, I said. Please have an open mind when you do, she said. I have something else for you. She handed me a little statue and a rose-colored candle. The statue kind of looked like a totem pole carving. I don't know how to describe it. She had me put those things in my backpack too. I have to go soon, but I want you to meet someone. We stood up at the same time. She leaned in and gave me a hug. She smelled like cinnamon and other spices. We exited her apartment and went down to the 1st floor. She knocked on a door and a toddler opened it. Come in, shouted the boy. He hopped down the hallway and led us to one of 2 bedrooms. The bedroom was being used as some kind of sitting room. There were a lot of candles around and large chunks of unpolished crystals. Lots of geodes. Everything was really dusty. The floor looked like it hadn't been vacuumed in years. This place smelled weird. It smelled wrong. Kind of like a hint of ozone being masked by cheap incense. Aubry introduced me to the woman perched on the couch. Her name was Diana. I smiled inward because that is one of my names. I wasn't going to share that with this woman. Not even because Aubry introduced me. Diana reached out and gave me a cold, limp handshake. Nice to meet you. I was so thankful when Aubry said we were in a rush and that she just wanted me to add a face to the name so I can come to Diana if I have more questions when Aubry is gone. Diana nodded and then reached behind the couch for something. She retrieved a baby fist-sized piece of smoky quartz and handed it to me. For your journey, she said. I was confused. I'm not the one moving. Shouldn't this go to Aubry? Aubry has what she needs to go on her journey. I didn't like the way that sounded coming from Diana. She made it sound suspicious. Okay then. I took the crystal and turned to look at Aubry. She nodded at me, and that was our cue to leave. After we left Diana's apartment, Aubry walked me to the gate that led to the road. Where are you moving anyway? I asked. I think it's Kansas this time. You're not sure? I was astonished. I never know where my mom is dragging me. I could tell she was sad. I leaned in and gave her a hug. How do you know Diana? I asked. She's an old friend of my mother's, but she became more my friend than hers. She's taught me a lot. I hope you can learn from her as well. I had no intention of speaking with Diana again. I already felt like I said too much in her presence. I don't know why, but that lady was all wrong. What's with the book and the other stuff? It all seems pretty woo-woo out there, I said while waving my hands around. Please read the book, light the candle, and think of me when I'm gone. Okie dokie, I said. Aubry gave me one last hug and whispered something in my ear. She told me that she slept with the guy I had a crush on last night. I recoiled. I looked at her. It was as if the spell was broken. Aubry did not look the same. She was no longer exotic. She was quite plain, actually. Fuck you, I said, and walked away. When I got home, I went straight to my room. I pulled the stuff Aubry gave me out of my bag and looked it over once again. I flipped through the book. How to Release the Soul of a Rabbit was the title of Chapter 5. I looked at the statue. It was not something I would have chosen to be part of my decor. The rose-colored candle smelled like an old woman's foot. No, thank you, I said out loud, to no one in particular. I took the book, candle, and statue and headed to the big trash can in the kitchen. As I rounded the corner coming out of my room, I ran head-on into my mother. The book fell out of my hand. My mother bent down and picked up the book. Being a lover of books and a curious person by nature, my mother stared at the book. Her eyes went wide like a frightened horse. Where did you get this book? My mother was scared and mad as hell. Her eyes dropped to the other stuff in my hands. She grabbed the statue from my hand and held it at eye level. It's really ugly. I'm not sure why she gave it to me, I said to my mom. I got the stuff from my new friend, Aubry. What new friend? Why haven't I met her? I met her about a week ago. But Mom, she's moving away tomorrow and wanted me to have some stuff to remember her by. Don't worry, Mom. We aren't friends anymore. I kind of hate her now. This is not a statue. It's an idol. She wanted you to light this candle, read the book, and think about her, right? I nodded slowly. Let's get this shit out of our house now. I followed my mom to the trash cans outside. We hooked the stuff in the main can, and my mom rolled the can to the curb. Now it's gone, off the property. Let's go have a talk. I followed my mother back into the house. It was warm inside, so we clicked on the ceiling fan before sitting down. Could you run to the kitchen and get me a shot of Jameson's? Asked my mother. Mom, you don't drink, I said. I do today. Now pour me a shot so we can talk about witches. I thought you were an atheist. There are no atheists in foxholes. Witches are very real, and you almost let one into our house.